Hi, everybody. Will here with this week's interview chair. We have Michael Pawasarat. Sit back because he has some amazing stories. Everybody, Will here with this week's interview chair. We have Mr. Michael Pawasarat. Hi, Michael. How are you?
Good, Will. Good. Fine. Thank you.
It was good to see you in New York.
Thank you. It was fun seeing you.
Yeah, I didn't get much time to catch up, but at least we got this organized. I've been trying to do this for a while, so we had our wires crossed, but now we're all set.
Okay.
Things are going well there at Hastings Farm?
Yep. Well and good. Breeding a couple litters of standard poodles and breeding some thoroughbred racehorses, and things are good.
Excellent. Very good. Very good. All right. Well, let's get started then. Are you all set? Are you comfortable?
Yep. Very comfortable.
Okay. Tell me, Michael, how old were you and how did you get involved in what we call our sport of dogs?
Okay. I guess my sport of dogs started when I was probably like around 14, 15 years old, and I worked for the local vet. And people would come in and get their dogs treated and spayed and neutered. And this one lady came in with a silver miniature poodle, and it turned out to be a Holly Court for people that ever heard that name. And they were like Wendell Samet, which did show for him, and she was like the premier silver miniature poodle at that time. So the vet, Dr. Drives, took care of the dog. And then, by the way, the lady said, make sure it's groomed when it leaves, the hospital. And then Dr. Drives says, oh, no problem. And he said, I can't do it. Do you know how to do it? I said, we're going to find out. So anyways, we groomed her miniature poodle, and accidentally she thought, oh my God, this is fantastic. So I got a family of dogs being brought into me. And, now you got to remember where I started. Sheboygan, Wisconsin isn't exactly, the gateway to poodles, so it was interesting. So I went through high school, and there was one dog show, that I went to, and that was a Sheboygan Kennel Club. And luck by draw, I got to meet like Ruthie Cooper and Dick Cooper. And don't ask me how, but I did. And it was sort of like a big gap. And I'll follow along with this story. So anyways, I graduated from high school, and again, where I was from, my father shook my hand and said, have fun, because you're not living here anymore. And so I found out that they were looking for somebody to groom dogs in a fancy grooming salon down outside of Milwaukee. So I walked in the door, and they said, well, here's a dog to trim, and I'll let you know if you get the job. So, yeah, you got the job. This is even better. The lady that ran the whole business, she left, so now it's all yours. I said, thank you very much. So anyways, I trimmed dogs, and then I guess down there, word spread a little bit. And this lady, for the people that sort of like zero in on this, came up to me and said, will you trim my dogs? My name is Betty Martin. And I said, sure. And so Betty Martin and another going back one, and Kate Kanowski were really friendly. And Kanowskis were very friendly with Ed Jenner poodles again. And now this is really in the heyday or so. So I was trimming dogs and doing well, and I didn't really show anything yet. And so I go along, and they said, we're going to the International Kennel Club, and we've got some miniature poodles that we want you to show. So I go down there, and everything is fine and all that. And now I'm thinking, oh, this is my calling, or whatever you want to say. So who shows up but Richard Bauer, Johnny Brennan, Frank Sabella, the whole garage full
That's
of people
amazing.
that are into poodles, So I'm looking, and I sort of like zero in like on Richard Bauer. I don't know why, but I don't know who Richard Bauer is. I've never seen him in my life, but there's a person that, I mean, he's got a boatload of toys, minis, and standards. And there's somebody there that's like running the ship, a lady, So I think she's the handler, right? And Richard is brushing, and Jimmy Mitchell's there, and he's brushing. And so I find out where the address is, and I send a letter of application, to Richard Bauer. So, okay, that's fine. And I sent letters to Frank, and I sent letters here and sent letters there. So anyways, that fate is looking at me. I get one response, Richard Bauer, right? So anyways, we have a phone call. He says, can you fly into Newark Airport next week? He says, I have an opening. And he says, I said, that's pretty quick. I said, I'll be there. So anyways, I fly into Newark, and I get there literally like 8 a.m, right? And it's on a Wednesday, and it's like it happened yesterday. And I, being again from Sheboygan, Wisconsin, I figure somebody's bound to show up. Well, now it's 8:00 at night, and nobody has come to pick me up yet. And from Newark, New Jersey to Mayapack, New York. So I get out. This is before cell phones and all that. I get out my 3 nickels and put them in the machine. And Blair answers the phone, Richard's partner. Yeah, somebody will be there in about 3 minutes. I said, okay, well, 2 more hours went by, and this lady comes down, and it only could be a dog person. Michael! She's screaming. And it was the lady that every Wednesday she went from, and that's how big the business was back there. She'd go from JFK to Newark and just picking up dogs coming in from all over the United States to be bred. And so anyways, that was the starting. So I hop in the car, up to Mayapack we go. And I was with Richard 8 years. And literally from the time I walked in and Jimmy Mitchell was there and et cetera, he was like a brother to me. It was like, I didn't work for the guy. It was like, brothers, and he said, let's start out on an even plate. He said, I am not a teacher. He says, but if you can follow me around and look what I do, and he says, you'll learn a lot, So that was that. And I said, well, that'll be easy, right? Well, I forgot. Richard didn't start trimming until 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and he would trim through the night.
Oh, gosh.
Everything was trimmed, but remember, we worked the whole day, so I'd come in there, at 9 to 10 o'clock at night, and that's when Richard started. He would trim all through the night with peace and quiet, and he didn't say anything. Like he'd be on the phone to Frank Sabella, or he'd be on the phone to Teddy Young or somebody else, and that's against those guys. That's how they did it. Well, I can do that even when you're young and foolhardy. I can do that 1 or 2 times, like that. I'm like, oh boy, this is a learning curve, but that's just how he did it, and just how he produced. And he would never. It was so interesting for me, because Richard said, the best advice, he says, just think of walking when you're showing indoor. He said, think of walking down the street in New York City. Never been to New York City, Richard. Well, think about Sheboygan. He said, all you do is walking a dog and making it like it, like that. And that's always, stuck with me, like that. And I worked for him for so long, and he would never, ever, ever did you see him upset about the people, the judging, anything. It was just all about the dog. And people, there's pictures of Richard showing dogs, and he wouldn't be looking at the dog at all. The dog would just be looking at him, and he'd be, he'd always like kind of whistle and laugh. And it was, like just a pleasure, working for him.
Well, he was one of my all-time favorites. When I was a kid, Richard was, he was
exactly.
The man.
I mean, it was, there was like the, if you want to call it the hammer and nail kind of handler, and I don't mean to derogatory about that. And then there was like Richard. It was just off the cuff, and it was just like, just so natural. And he, it wasn't like, oh, that dog is this and this. And Richard said, really? I never noticed that. No, off he'd go to first place. And, that was, I mean, he had a terrific record. I think he still won, in our little world, like Poodle Club of America. Somebody can look it up, but I think he won it like 5 times. And it's, it was just,
as a youngster, I bred English Cockers because I wasn't tall enough to show the Irish Setters yet. So watching him show George Donnell Galaxy was always, it was amazing. I just the thought, I would see pictures of George in the English Cocker Review and be like, oh my God. I just thought it was so amazing. Were you there during the George era then?
I was there with the George era, and I can't say I showed him, but I trimmed them always, like I'd have them ready for Richard. Richard would put like the finishing touches on them, but it was just into that thing where we're and Will, you'll know this because you're a sporting dog guy, but with hand stripping and stoning and the whole thing. But I'd have them done like maybe 98%, and then he would just put like the finishing touches, little things that stick in your head now. I just look like Judge, part of the English Cocker Club, just a stud dog. And there's nobody, and I'm looking down and reminiscing and I'm smiling to myself, like he could trim feet on an English Cocker like nobody could. I mean, they look like cat feet when he was done with them. And, nowadays I said, well, maybe it's a breeding, or maybe it's what, but they're like these little flat ones, and they're, and I could tell you things about Galaxy. I mean, it was with Pam Hall and Patty Proctor and Jimmy Mitchell, and he was such a fun dog. We'd get done with work, and again, Richard didn't come in till like 9 or 10 o'clock at night, but we lived on just about 2 blocks, I don't know, from Lake Mayapack, and we would take George down to the lake, and it is an English Cocker, if people are involved, and we would throw like a stone into the lake, and George would dive in to the bottom, get that exact stone, come out, shake off, and hand you the stone. And and it was like he was like that special dog, and we always laughed. I mean, he was very, very active. I said, this dog could be bred to a bulldog, a bloodhound, anything, and produce champion English Cocker Spaniel. I mean, he was so dominant to the breed,
Yeah. Oh my God!
And then he was fortunate enough to have Ruthie Cooper as an owner, and it was their biggest thrill to come and see George being shown. Here I am. I'm from. How does this work? Ruthie and Dick Cooper, and Dick Cooper is the top sporting dog handler in the United States. And it's nope, you're going to come and watch George being shown, and and Karen Simon and being shown at the same time. And,
Simon. Teddy showed Simon, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, and it was something that like nowadays everybody smiles, and then if you want to say they stab you in the back, I don't know if you want to say that, but there was none of that. I mean, not to all of us. I mean, it was just a lot of fun, and everybody knew everybody. The dogs were in great condition, and it was a lot of fun. And there's always I don't know, people that are into English Cockers. There's a head study of Galaxy that was just, it's still being used today. But anyway, so we go to Mr. Towski, and he was just a very, very interesting man. So and his wife's name was Anna, and he just sitting there, and they took the profile shot, a sporting dog up on the side. And then everybody said, oh, this is going to turn out so fabulous. And Mr. Kowski says, next. And he says to me, Michael, bring that crate out here. He said, put it in front of the gate. He said, put a towel on there and set George there for me, please. And so I did. And he takes this picture, right? And he says, I'll be back. Now, Mr. Towski at this time could hardly walk. He was like on 2 canes, right? So he went in and he had this box camera that looked like it was made in 1851, like that. So I said, we're sitting there. And he comes back out with this proof, right? So I don't know if you ever look at that picture again, Galaxy is looking, I think, off to the right,
yeah,
George?
I can see it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, when he came out, he was looking out to the left, and Mr. Kowski, Rudy, says, no good. He said right back. So he went back and he flipped the negative, so he looked to the right, and it was a completely different picture. I mean, it was just like so stunning. So that's
I can dig it up right now. I have a book in front of me. Keep going, though.
but okay. But anyways, that was and some people love Towski shots, and some people think, oh, he was just a painter and all that. But he knew all the dogs from their personalities and what they should act like, and plus he knew all the people that were good. But he was so good. And then the highlight of that, you'd have to get there. Literally, he was in New Jersey, and we were in Mayfax. You have to get there in the morning when it was still dark, and when the sun was coming up. That's when he took these really, really good pictures. But the fun part about it was, and he was very German, and he lived in this little German type houseboat, but his wife would make the most fantastic breakfasts, and you'd go back because he started his photography career taking photos of show horses. So he was, so interesting, and but that's the Dunelm Galaxy scenario,
I have it here somewhere. I remember seeing it, but I'll dig it up and see if I can at least put it with the interview so people can see it. So
yeah, it made a completely difference of a thing. So again, when I was apprenticed for Richard for like 8, almost 9 years.
Which is unheard of nowadays, Michael. It really is.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it really is. And then I had some offers, to go do this and go that, and I ended up with some people down on the eastern shore of Maryland by the name of Roush's Halcyon, and they had English Cockers, Yorkshire Terriers, Clumbers, and I think I bought them a Greyhound or something that did halfway decent. But English Cockers were Mrs. Roush's, Jean Roush's, cup of tea. She just loved them. And Mr. Roush hunted with them, and he actually hunted. It wasn't like, okay, well, get a good hunting dog out here after these, but he hunted with them and all that. So that was a lot of fun. And she bred a number of litters. She bought some dogs from Galaxy people, from Mr. and Mrs. Clark, etc. But she did her own thing, and it was fun to watch her because everybody said breed to A, and she would breed one bitch to A, and then she'd breed her other bitches to B. And as everything lines up, the B's always look better than the A's. And everybody would scratch their heads. And was fortunate enough she bred to one of Bonnie Threpall's stud dogs and produced English Cocker Club of America winner. And it was just, again, fun watching her enjoy the dogs. She would just come there, and nobody knew who she was, none of that, all that. And they just had a great time. And then I started, not so much the friendships changed, but on a different level. Bobby Fischer was over in Baltimore, married to Susie, and became fast friends. And he kept pushing. He said, I think it's time you ought to, get going on your own and all this kind of stuff. And Peter Green, Roy Hollow, and Bobby Fisher was just phenomenal with me. He had more than enough clients. And he said, I called Mrs. So-and-so up. I said, okay, really? And she said, she just fired me. And I said, what? Which she didn't quite say. But he says, yeah, she wants you to show two of her dogs. So I went, wow, because I had no dogs. I said, wow, But anyways, I had that kind of support. So we finished some of that. But those, back in that day were really, really good friends. And then Peter Green, I was at, I can remember it as yesterday. I was at the Wilmington Kennel Club, and I think he just, maybe it was a year, and he just had his, one with the Lakeland and Crufts and Westminster like that. I didn't know who he was. Well, I mean, I knew who he was, but it was different. I was walking across the field, and he said, "Hi, mate." And I go, "What kind of words are these guys? Is he talking to you like that?" So he said, who are you working for? Who are you doing? Well, I'm sort of here and there. He said, really? Oh, I know, Richard and blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff. He said, where have you been hiding? I said, I was back at the crate. So, we laughed and, we talked. Well, again, he was personally, Peter, he said, okay, enough of this. He says, when you go out on your own for real, he said, I know just to stop. He says, so anyways, his main client was Dorothy Weimer that he went best in show with. This can be a funny story. Somebody knows me a little bit, but he goes along and he says, we got just a place. You're going to rent one of Dorothy's houses and it has a building on it. You build a kennel, blah, blah. He had it all orchestrated for me.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So anyways, but so my father's still alive. And I mean, literally, Peter had it down where Dorothy was going to rent me this place for like $50 a month, right? Now you got to remember what year it was. Remember that. Now, please remember. So anyway, my father comes east and he's going to help us build a kennel. And the people that were going to build a kennel, one of these names was Bobby Fisher, myself, Elliot Weiss, and Airedale guy. I can't think of it. But we were all going to meet and, take a week and get this kennel organized. So anyways, so my father, it's typical of him, he said, well, wait a minute. He said, before we pound a nail, he said, I'm going to see if we can get the monthly rent to be a little bit cheaper, and I'm going, Dad, don't say anything. No. What can I say? No. Well, I learned a big lesson from him. No, so he tries to get it like for $40 a month, Well, that didn't work. That didn't work, So anyway, Billy Thompson. Do you remember Billy Thompson? Well,
I don't know. No, I never met the man. No.
Oh, okay. Well, and he was an Airedale guy, and he could put him down like you couldn't believe him. And he won Montgomery County like with an Airedale, one Airedale. That's the only Airedale he ever had in good condition. They always said, but he was phenomenal. Well, anyways, he's a little light in the loafers or so. He's going to be our cook, right? So anyways, he's funny as could be. So he never cooked or boiled an egg in his life, like that. And we're having so much fun because it was hysterical. So we got that kennel built, and I still this is the thing. I know who Roy Holloway is, but he's not on the picture yet. So one day I get, so anyway, I'm backing up. So I just bought this brand new van and now we're dating ourselves or something. And it was literally brand new and it cost like $4,000, right? And you laugh. So Peter calls me up one day. He said, Michael, what? He says, you going to Florida on the Florida circuit? I said, no, I don't, be honest, I don't have enough dogs, Pete. I'm going to stay home and just do the one local show. And he said, okay, I got a deal for you. I said, what? He said, we're going to let this guy, Roy Holloway, Alan Levine. You remember Alan Levine?
Oh, yeah.
He's too shy. If I only knew now. He said, they're going to rent your van because they're going to go to Florida.
No.
Like that. And I said, and I don't know either one of these. I mean, I know, but I don't. And I said, oh, okay, well, what are we going to charge them? Peter said, you know what? They both don't have so much money. He said, what we're going to do is we're going to get a set of new tires on your truck when they come back. I went, oh, okay. Like how dumb can you be? Like that. So anyway, it gets better. Neither one of them had a driver's license.
Oh, jeez. Now this is Alan and Roy.
Alan and Roy. So now this is my introduction to Roy. Who becomes my super mentor after a while. So anyways, they take the truck to Florida. The gods were with me. It came back. Everything was good. I said, anybody, and here your brand new truck, and once you're going with some. Roy had he had a Labrador, and then Alan had a bloodhound or something, or an otterhound. I said, oh my God, so that was that. So it comes back. It took a while before I got my new tires, but I did get my new tires, so that was that. But anyway, so Roy and I again, for some reason, I just, clicked with him. He was so good. So anyways, again, Peter calls up. Roy needs a ride to the dog show. This is the deal. Peter always had to work it, like that. He said, I know you're by yourself. You're going to be. He said you're going to be, and Roy will get in and he'll drive you. I said, well, I hope he has a driver's license by now. But anyways, so that would be the deal. I mean, we'd be going to like the Carolinas or always south or far, and Roy would get in the truck and drive. I could sleep. And he says, "Don't worry about Roy." He says, "He'll be fine." He says, and in the morning he'll help you exercise, and he's only got a couple of dogs, and he said he'll hold poodles for you, and don't worry about it. Everything is good. Well, it was. Big education. I'd get to the show in the morning. You pop your exercise, then all of a sudden you turn around. Where's Roy? No, Roy. He'd be going getting coffee. Well, he'd be back with coffee when the groups would start or something. So I'm going, oh, come on, what's going on? But it was funny. I mean, we go to dog shows and you take this with a grain of salt. But Roy, why are we doing? What? They just beat me last week. He said, you got to show up. The dogs are different. People are different. Just show up and show. And Roy come back before groups. Well, how did things go, buddy? No, let's call you buddy. Roy, you wouldn't believe I watched. What is it? Well, that's really good. He says, you just keep showing, And he was like just a character and a half. And I if this has a little to do with dog shows, but so on one of our trips going from, let's say Pennsylvania to Florida, we're driving through the night and trying to stay awake. And Roy says, "Did I ever tell you about World War II?" And I said, "Roy, you never did." And he said, "Well, buddy," he said, "I was in the paratroopers. You knew that." And I said, "No, Roy, I don't." And he said, "Okay, well, I'll tell you, I was." So D-Day is, he says, I go over and I get hung up in a tree and get shot down. And he says, off I am to a German prisoner of war camp. He said, and I tried escaping, but that wasn't very successful. So I'm in this prisoner of war camp, and he said, they wanted somebody who could cook. And he said, I can cook, but not too good. So he put his hand up and he became a cook. Well, when you were a cook, I mean, this is really how he used to go to town and get the food for everybody and bring it back to the camp. And then he would cook. So anyways, this is typical Roy stories, I mean, who would believe? So anyways, the war is over, right? And he's sitting in France, right? And he's there 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. And all these guys that married French brides are on the boat to the U.S. And Roy is still sitting in France trying to get back to the United States. So anyways, anybody knew Roy Holloway knows he has a bit of a temper like that. So I call them Hollowayisms. So anyways, he lets loose evidently and said, I want to be back in the United States. Blah, 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 blah. So no problem. We got one of the commanders coming here and you can express your problems, like that. So he said, fine. So they say, Private Holloway or Corporal Holloway, report to blah, blah, blah. So he walks in and salutes the guy. And it was General Eisenhower. What's your problem? What's your problem? So he stuttered. He says, well, sir, he says, I don't think this is quite fair. He says, I served my country, not too luckily, blah, blah, blah. All I want to do is get back to, the United States. The war is over and I've been sitting here. He said, we'll see what we can do. And again, what was your name? Holloway. Okay. So now we come to the dog show thing. Bob Forsythe and Holloway are at a boxer specialty in Washington, D.C. And Roy goes best with his boxer, and there's somebody presenting the trophy, right? General Eisenhower. And he says to Roy, he said, oh, I see you made it back to the States.
Wow.
And he was running for the president of the United States at that time, only Roy.
That's amazing.
No, I mean, and those are just a little bit of the stories that Roy, would tell. And, you go, okay, Roy, if you say so. He was just, and so interesting. And now we have Dougie Holloway, which is, really, really a good friend of mine. But first time I ever met Dougie Holloway, he had hair down to the middle of his back. He had a beard that was exactly that long. And he was driving dogs down to Florida for Johnny Brennan to deliver a second string of dogs. And this guy comes out of the car and Roy and all this. And I said, holy moly, what is this guy? And it's Dougie Holloway. And then the rest is history. He cut his hair, shaved, and went best in show at Westminster,
Yep.
But I mean, the people that you meet, I mean, like, if you want to call it a ladder of life or a ladder, whatever, they can be on the bottom of that first step or the top. And it really don't care. You have that bond of dogs. I'm always trying to look at, for a good one or et cetera, or having fun. But for me, I really love the dogs, but it's the people, like for Maxine Bean, again, in poodles like that. She had this really high, screechy voice. And I was, again, starting out, and she called. Now, I always talked to her when we were on the Florida circuit working for Richard, and I really admired her. She knew I went out on my own. She calls up with that voice, Michael, screaming, I said, yes, Maxine, I know it's you. And she said, Mrs. Strachan, who, that was her big, big client. She said, we want to send up a brown miniature poodle for you to show and finish. And I said, oh, that'd be very nice. She said, yeah, we'll send it up I can always remember this, like for the New England circuit. And I never finished the New England circuit. I'd only go halfway. And she said, you'll finish them in like 3 or 4 shows. But she wants them finished in the East, like that. So anyways, I always remember this dog coming out of the crate. I mean, I thought it was like, like a standard poodle, not a miniature poodle, because they had them big down in Texas, like that. So I call Maxine, you think I'll be all right here? It's not to worry. So he said, not to worry. So he finished in a couple of shows up on the New England circuit. But those are the things, you remember. And I had, which was fun at the time. Frank Sabella called me up and said, Michael, he said, do you have room for an open dog? I said, well, I think I do, like that. So he said, well, I have this dog that I have as a house dog. And first of all, don't get too excited. He said, he doesn't grow hair, blah, 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 blah. And he said, I'm doing like toy poodles at PCA. Can you, pick them up? I'm going to hound there. And I said, yeah, fine. So I went over and did it. And he literally had 3 hairs on his head. He was like, I don't know what was going on there. And he said, oh, by the way, enter him in a couple of months. And I said, what? Come on, Frank. He said, no. He said, we're not going best in show at Westminster. Just finish him. I said, okay. So, he just happened to be lucky or whatever. But, it was fun showing for him. It was like, again, no cell phones, no nothing. You get back from the shows on Monday and you call him, and he was again so into it. How did the dog move? How did this? Did you have fun? Did the dog have fun? It was like, it was showing his first dog or whatever. So he, that was a huge part. And there's,
would you consider all these people your mentors, Michael?
Definitely.
What's that?
Definitely my mentors, for sure. Like Bob and Jane. I would go up on one of my, again, Peter had it orchestrated. We'll go up on one of our first New England circuits, And I knew Bob and Jane pretty well, like that. So Bob says, oh, we're going to dinner tonight. I said, oh, that's be wonderful. Well, I don't know. Bob used to be able to drink a few Manhattans in his day, right? Like that. And I says to him, we sit down at the table, and I said, I want a separate check. He almost had a heart attack because they used to, they'd be drinking all after dinner and all that. And you'd have a turkey sandwich for, back then $198, and your bill would be like $80 or something because the liquor bill was included, and it used to get the biggest kick out. He'd always tell me, I know, Bob, I know. So yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it was good. Oh, I gotta flip back to mention no judges, no anything, but Janie is pregnant with her daughter Susie, right? Susie, and she calls up Richard, and this is showing the boxer bitch at that time, like that. And good old Janie, she knew what to do. So she's going to the hospital. I don't still to this day don't know why Bob wasn't going to show up, but maybe he was showing something else or going to the hospital. I don't know. So she said, take the boxer bitch. She says, I think there's 2 specials, and so-and-so is judging, doing the group, and so-and-so is doing best in show. So Richard says, yeah, okay. So he goes to the show, and he gets beaten the breed with her. Two champions. The other one beats them like that. So anyway, I said, all right, are you going to call her? He says, oh, yeah. So anyway, good luck on that one, like that. So Richie calls up Janie, and she says, in her blunt expression, I'm sure she wasn't too happy. But anyways, she said, I said, what did she say? She said, dead silence. I said, okay. And that was the end of that story, But things like that, just never, ever fazed Richard. He would say, okay, whistle along. So that was that. And we go along and, just go from there. That's what it is.
So that's an incredible experience. What about standard poodles, Michael?
So what about them, or which ones, or?
I want to know how you got into standard poodles.
Oh, okay. That's a good question. So I always out in the Midwest would show toys or minis, but I got to Richards, and there was a dog there, Champion Phillips Bell Glen, Prince Philip of Bell Glen. And Richard went best in show with him at TCA, right? And he was the first standard poodle that I ever saw that had carriage. And this is something interesting. Again, like to me, carriage is being able to move it from the front and to the rear, but become like high in the withers and carry their neck and shoulders up. Now, this is a long time ago, and that dog had that and passed it along, and it was really, really interesting, and that got my bug going. And Richard, he liked the miniatures and toys, but I like the standards. So we I would do the work on the standards, and he would show me that. But that's how that that progressed, and then like Timmy Brazier with his type of dog that came in from the West Coast, and Penny Dugan, his assistant, who was just phenomenal. I wish you would see more of her. I wish you would judge. I mean, she was just so way ahead of the game, and it was probably one of the bigger mistakes I ever made in my life. She calls me up, Penny, one day. She says, "Michael," she says, my father isn't doing so well, blah, blah, blah. And she said, "I want to move back to the East for a while." And I said, "Oh, that'd be wonderful." She says, "Yeah." She said, "Are you looking for anybody?" I said, "Matter of fact, I am." And she's into work, yeah. And she said, "Well, I've got like 6 standards." I said, "Well, count me out." If I only knew then, she was, phenomenal.
Oh God,
I would have worked for her, but she was really good, Oh, and then I'll get you another one here. So anyways, things progress, and I think I probably now. I mean, I did finally win Poodle Club America, but and I think I hold the record for more best of opposite sex than anybody else. I said, "But are you judging for this? Okay, I'll go over there and stand over there. You judge the rest." And anyways, times go by, and I get a call one day from Mrs. Clark. She says, "I've got an apprentice here, and she's from Japan, and is there any chance you could come along with you?" And I said, yeah, sure. So she said, "Okay, where can we meet you?" So we're going down on the Florida circuit, and it turns out to be Kazozaka, and anyway, and the minute I saw him, and the minute I knew, I mean, this guy was such. He could speak no English, right? I mean, we're talking, put out the hand signals, everything. But we just hit it off, and he such a good trimmer. He was so good with the dogs, and we laugh at it today because he says, "I got instructions." He says, "What did he say? Something?" And then by the end of it, "Michael, not so good with the broom, but works very hard. So you be good with the broom. Keep set up clean." So he was, he's tremendous.
A little off topic. I had an assistant come from Japan. His name was Takoya Idaka. And nowadays, when you get messages, they can. It sounds like they can speak English perfectly.
Right. Yeah.